أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Please recite a Surah Fatiha for Marhuma Rabab Banu and Marhum Mukhtar Ali Makhraj and for all of your Marhumin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. إياك نعبد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يعد حقه المجتهدون. الذي لا يدركه بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوث الفتن. الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا أجل ممدود. فترى القلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته. اللهم أفز صلة سلواتك وسلامة تسليماتك على أفضل التعينات المفازة من العماء رباني وآخر التنزلات المضافة إلى نوع الإنساني. كان الله ولم يكن معه شيء ثاني. محصي لعوالم حضرات الخمس في وجوده وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام المبين. الرسول النبي المكي المدني الخرشي التهامي صاحب لواء الحمد ومقام المحمود أبي القاسم محمد الحميد. محمد وعلى أخيه وسحره وابن عمه وخليفته من بعده وقائد الغر المحجلين ياسوب الدين إمام المتقين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب. اللهم صل على وعلى ابنته الطاهرة الحوراء الإنسية الراضية المرضية الشفية يوم الجزاء فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها. محمد وعلى سبتي الرحمة وسيدي شباب أهل الجنة الحسن والحسين. اللهم صل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد وحسن بن علي وحجة القائم المنتظر المهدي. اللهم صل على محمد. حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك. اللهم سهل منهجهم وعجل في فرجهم وجعلنا من محبيهم ومواليهم وشيعتهم. ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى قيام يوم الدين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلوات صل على محمد وآله. I begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent and most merciful. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has provided us this tawfiq and this inspiration to commemorate the Agha of Sayyid al-Shuhada and also of his grandfather Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. My dear brothers and sisters, I have taken up a topic of shukr and how important shukr is in our lives and how pivotal shukr is in our lives, how thanksgiving and sense of gratitude is recognized and is essential for us to demonstrate our ubudiyah, our ta'abbud, our dedication and our servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah, tonight I would like to shed some light on the life of the Holy Prophet, but also I wanted to connect the dots. Where does this shukr lead and who are those shakireen? And how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the reward for the shakireen. And also I would like to, inshallah, quickly reflect upon the life of the Messenger of Allah, especially for our young children here, to know the level of compassion he had, the level of mercy he had, the level of truthfulness that he had, that he is uswa for us, as Quran commands us, lakum fi rasulillahi uswatun hasana. In the Prophet, we have the best exemplar, we have the best mentor, we have the best whom we can emulate and follow and can never get wrong, because if we follow the Holy Prophet, then we will reach Hawz-e Kawthar, as the Prophet of Allah mentions. So, my dear brothers and sisters, this is very, very important that we reiterate, especially in front of our children, the life of the Holy Prophet. Because when the enemies of Islam, when they saw that the land is very, very fertile for Islam to prosper in a time when there is anarchy and oppression, what they have done is, first they have tried to ridicule Quran, and when they could not ridicule Quran, now they want to ridicule the messenger. So if the messenger is discredited, obviously then the message is discredited. If the messenger himself is not, trustworthy, honest, sincere, then obviously the message that he brings also does not have any credibility. That's why we find shaitan attacking the seerah of Rasulullah, and shayateen doing their acts of oppression and zulm and associating their acts to the seerah of Rasulullah, when the seerah of Rasulullah was not such. The seerah of Rasulullah is full of compassion and mercy. Quran says, innaka la'ala khuluqin azim. In you, O Prophet of Allah, is the best character. Your character, you possess the best character. There is no other equal to you in character. The Prophet of Allah is uswa for us in ensuring and purifying our character. Another saying of the Holy Prophet, innama bu'istu li'utammima makarim al-akhlaq, that my appointment, my bi'sa, was to perfect the human character, to perfect human akhlaq. So how can the source itself be corrupted? So we need to know that pure Islam and that pure seerah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. But as I was discussing the subject of shukr, I want to sort of give a closure to that, and I want to share some of the ahadith. This hadith is narrated by our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam. The Imam says, on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would ask the believers, Ashakarta fulanan, were you thankful to that person? Whoever did a favor to you, were you thankful to that person or not, the servant of Allah on the day of judgment will say, "O Allah, فَيَقُولُ بَلْ شَكَرْتُكَ يَا رَبِّي." I did not thank him, O Allah, but I thanked you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would respond, فَيَقُولُ لَمْ تَشْكُرُنِي إِذْ لَمْ تَشْكُرُهُ. You have not thanked me as long as you have not thanked that creation or creator of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That makhluk that had done favor to you, if you were not thankful to him, you cannot be thankful to me. So now this is trickling down. This attribute of gratitude just does not lie in thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you receive a favor from somebody else, then you are expected to thank him also. If we only thank Allah on the day of judgment, the Imam is saying Allah is going to ask us, did you thank that person? If you have not thanked him, then you have not thanked me. These are the akhlaq that the Prophet of Allah had taught us, my dear brothers and sisters. And these akhlaq were not lip service. These were demonstrated and they were proven, and the Prophet was able to bring about the Arabs who were in dark ages, who were in Jahiliyyah. He was able to pull them out from that Jahiliyyah into Reformation that created an era of justice and peace during the life of the Holy Prophet. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Another narration from our 8th Imam, Imam Raza alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. The Imam says, Man lam yashkur al-mun'im min al-makhluqeen, lam yashkur Allah azza wa jal. Whoever do not thank the one who does him a favor from among Allah's creatures, from amongst Allah's servants, has not thanked Allah either. He has not thanked Allah. This is the akhlaq of Islam that was presented by the Holy Prophet. And those who came after the Holy Prophet have definitely trampled upon the seerah of Rasulullah. And today, I see it myself, and I'm sure you will agree with me, that why was Amirul Mu'mineen so adamant and so firm when he was being offered Khilafah? When he was being offered Khilafah in the third position by the committee or the Shura, the conditions that were laid in front of Amirul Mu'mineen were that you are going to govern the Islamic State with the Book of Allah and the Seerah of Rasulullah. And there was another third condition, Seerah of Shaykhain. If you and I were, in that position, we will say, whatever it is, I'll take the job and go there and try to fix it. But Amirul Mu'mineen declined. Amirul Mu'mineen said, I am only going to abide by the Book of Allah and the Seerah of Rasulullah. And I'm not going to follow the Seerah of Shaykhain, because they were human beings and they would make mistakes and they were not divinely guided. Had Amirul Mu'mineen accepted the job and endorsed the Seerah of Shaykhain, today Islam would be in a state of shame. Because then whatever has come after that was a list of blunders and mishaps that have occurred, as a result of which Islamic history is filled with the blood of innocent Muslims and non-Muslims. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When we look at the life of the Holy Prophet, from the beginning of his birth, even when the Prophet of Allah was born, there are narrations that say that the mother of the Holy Prophet could hear in the skies that the one today who is born to you, O Amina, is having all these virtues of all the prophets. He has the virtues of Adam, he has the virtues of Ibrahim, Noah, Isa, Musa, Ayyub, Yaqub, Jamal and beauty of Yusuf. And then even when the prophet was a child, the miracles that have occurred are documented in the history. The woman who had taken the prophet to keep under his care was a poor woman, and you know how her cattle started to become, healthy, and the area where the prophet was growing, which was barren, suddenly started growing trees and, grass for the cattle. And so there are many, miracles of the Holy Prophet. Those who are not wearing the spectacles of bias, those who are not looking with that sense of bias in their hearts, knew exactly who this child is and who this child is going to be. They knew that from the childhood, but then they declined. And then when you look at when the prophet was amongst the believers, his personality was very, very pleasing. He did not impose himself on people. When people were in the company of the Holy Prophet, they were very, very comfortable. Do we see leaders like that today? No, the leaders today expect those who are surrounding them just to say, yes, sir, yes, sir, They are not, they are not in that comfort zone. And then when the prophet would be angry, the prophet would never be angry. But if he is angry, he is only angry to seek the right of other people. He is not angry for himself. And that reflection or that manifestation of that character is seen in Amirul Mu'mineen. We see that Amirul Mu'mineen in the battlefield is about to finish the enemy of Islam, and he does something by which the Imam gets angry, so he walks away from the enemy, saying that unless and until I will bring my anger into control to ensure that my anger should only be directed for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I am not going to draw my sword and fight with my enemy. Because then that fight would be based on my anger and my grudge towards him. But I do not have any grudge with anybody. My anger is only directed for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat ala Muhammad wa alayhi. If you get a chance, you can look at Chehel Hadith that was done by Marhum Ayatollah Khomeini rahmatullah alayh. I think it's available on alislam.org. And there's a hadith on anger that he does the shara of the hadith on anger. And he mentions that anger is an emotion that needs to be there. If a person does not have anger, he does not have ghaira. He does not have dignity if he does not have anger. But that anger needs to be directed and controlled and should have a purpose. And that purpose cannot be your own greed and your own desire. But that anger should be directed towards the dignity and for protecting your dignity and for protecting Islam and for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat ala Muhammad wa alayhi. Then when we see the life of the Holy Prophet, he had a very balanced life. His life or his day was divided into 3 parts. One for worshipping Allah, and then another part for his family, and the third part for himself and people. Just, the Prophet of Allah, because he was the Prophet of Allah, he was uswa, he was a source of emulation. He had come here so people could follow the path that he is taking. And therefore we find that he was not some sage sitting in a closed room, locking himself all day long and just come out and raises his hand and goes away or something like that. He was a perfect family man with a balanced life, being involved in community, being involved with his family, and also engaging in worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything was balanced. And Islam expects us to have a balanced life. Then we also see that his compassion and his God-wariness was such that he would prefer others over himself. If he could offer something to, if something is being offered to him, he would prefer that somebody else gets it instead of him. He had that sense of compassion and mercy for other people. He did not have that sense of entitlement that we have in today's world, Even when we come to Islamic centers, we feel we are entitled to be, dealt in a certain way. And if we are not, then we feel very offended. Why am I being treated like this? I should have been this and I should have been that. And we here find the best person, the best creation of Allah does not feel himself entitled. And I'm sure you are aware the akhlaq of the Holy Prophet were such even a small child would not be able to overtake him in greeting the Prophet, in saying salam, because the Prophet would say earlier that child. The Prophet did not wait to see, okay, ये सलाम करता है मुझे नहीं करता है, अच्छा ये मुखालिफ गुरोह का है, मेरे लिए सलाम जो है ये तहम्मुल नहीं कर सकता. He is not, greeting me as if he is my enemy. So even without having any engagement, we are finding, and this is very common. The things that I'm telling, you can relate, especially in the part of the world your parents have come from, they can relate to all this that I'm saying. Then we find that when we look at the life of the Holy Prophet, that his criteria of every action was based on justice, not based on favoritism. All these things have come after the Holy Prophet, my dear brothers and sisters. In Islam, favoritism became a slogan. Okay? If you are my friend, then whatever you do, it's all right with me, like it's happening today. But if you're not my friend, even if you do something right, I'm going to mark you and make you a terrorist. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And then, so his criteria was not favoritism, but justice, even if it would go against him. And there are verses of Holy Quran saying to believers that you have to conduct yourself with justice even if it goes against you. But that is not how we follow. And then another point of the Holy Prophet is when he's in the room, when he enters the room, he fills the room, the narration says, with positive energy. He does not, fill the room with fear and awe that everybody is like shivering or, he would fill the room with positive energy. Even children would dare to come in front of the Prophet and are able to communicate with him. And then his meetings would be based on modesty, patience, compassion, trusteeship. He would speak to others with respect. He would never disrespect anybody. And even if he would preach somebody, one very popular narration, which is very, very popular, about a child, a mother bringing the child and saying, O Prophet of Allah, ask my child not to eat so-and-so thing. Then the Prophet of Allah says, come after 3 days. And when the mother comes after 3 days with a child, the Prophet says, oh my child, don't eat so-and-so in excess. And she asked the Holy Prophet, why didn't you ask me before? Why didn't you tell the child before? The Prophet says that before even I was eating, so I first wanted to abstain first myself and then tell somebody else. Even to a child, this is the kind of care the Prophet of Allah used to take. And how swift and how quick we are. We don't practice, but we try to enforce it upon others. We don't ourselves practice, but we want others somehow to automatically do it. And then there are, even set of expectations. I can relate this very, very well. Certain people even certain children are expected to be perfect in some way or the other. I think I can comfortably say here, children of Maulana, somehow people think that Maulana children, they should be perfect. I mean, they're children. How can they be perfect? And sometimes people are so rude, they actually approach them and say, Beta, aap to Maulana ke bete hai, aap aisa kaisa kar rahe ho? I mean, he's going to lose his childhood because he's a son of a Maulana. That's not going to happen. But we have that sort of expectations. And then another very good, of course, he is, he possessed the greatest character. Other character trait that was of the Prophet, he was a good listener. He would listen with patience. How many of us are willing to listen with patience? Sometimes I have conversations where people call me and talk to me like they go on and on for 45 minutes and then say, okay, Maulana, I will talk to you tomorrow. Like, you did not listen to me at all. I mean, I did listen. Okay, you have said all that, right? Can I also talk to you back and say something? So we are not willing to listen. And the Prophet of Allah was a very, very good listener. So these are the qualities we need to, instill in ourselves. And he would never leave people in the state of hopelessness. People would never feel hopeless leaving the company of the Holy Prophet. He will always give hope. A lot of us who are very, very accomplished, somebody comes very depressed, we make him a lot more hopeless. When he leaves, he's a lot more hopeless. We try to show him that, I was very successful, I came to the United States, I did this, I did that, but you cannot do anything. Just, your life is gone, you're over with your life. We do this, my dear brothers and sisters. But the Prophet of Allah, his character was, he would never leave a person would never leave him with hopelessness. He would always give hope. You can appreciate all this in the light of the verses of Holy Quran. Because Quran says that, never be hopeless from Allah's mercy. One can never be hopeless, and he is the manifestation of that Allah's mercy. So how can he make somebody hopeless when he comes to the Holy Prophet? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He was very kind-hearted. His compassion and mercy had nobody can compare to the compassion and mercy that the Prophet of Allah possessed. He kept other people's secrets. He would never reveal secrets. These are the qualities that the Prophet of Allah had, for which, he was very, very popular. If somebody would come and confide something to him in words, he would not pass that on. And now, how it is? You don't even have to talk. You text, even in the majlis, and then that text gets forwarded to so many other people, and the secret is out even before the majlis is over. But the seerah of Rasulullah was, he would keep secrets in his heart. He would not share. If you have told him this is a secret, he's not going to tell it to anybody. Then the attitude with which the Prophet dealt with problems and issues, the narration says he was ambitious, meaning buland himmat. His himmat was, he would never give up. His convictions were so strong that he would never give up. That is something somehow I feel, especially children who are born and raised in this part of the world. A lot of them, I see them, they give up things very quickly. They don't have that resilience of fighting it back till they get it right. You can ask your parents, some of those who came, and how they have struggled in this part of the world, and we find them, you give them a small task, in 2-3 minutes, they say, no, it's not possible. Just go and buy some new, buy another thing. I mean, you have not even tried a little bit, and then you just give up. The Prophet of Allah, his character was such that he would never give up. Then his nature was very, very soft. He was very, very soft-natured. He was not harsh. In fact, let me share this verse of Holy Quran in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Holy Prophet, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَزًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَأَنْفَزُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. O Prophet, and had you been harsh and hard-hearted, surely they would have scattered from around you. So the Prophet was soft-hearted. The Prophet was soft-spoken. He was never harsh on anybody. People can say what they want and he would not burst into emotion. What are you talking about? What are you saying? You're telling me this, I am the Prophet. Nothing like that. I mean, he was very soft-hearted. Then he never, ever committed makr, fareb, deceit, treachery. Even his enemies testified his trustworthiness. His enemies testified his trustworthiness. He never, sometimes we try to justify wrong things by saying maslahat hai, isme jo hai maslahat. क्या मसलहत है? दीन का दारो मदार आपकी जात के ऊपर जो है मबनी हो गया है. As if the whole religion is, standing on your shoulders, and if you don't do this, it is as if it's going to fall apart. And I have heard so many, my teachers in the seminary saying, what maslahat are you talking about? If it is wrong, it is wrong. Just walk away from it. It is not your job, it's not your duty. This religion is not an orphan religion. It has the Imam and he's going to protect it. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And we find the same character being reflected in Amirul Mu'mineen. Amirul Mu'mineen had declared this. If the person, the opponent, Amir-e-Sham was his opponent, and Imam said, if makr was the criteria, and if makr would have been, deceit would have been allowed in Islam, then nobody can be more deceitful than I. But it is not allowed in Islam. And what Amir-e-Sham is doing is deceit and makr. And I am not going to cross the boundaries that have been laid down by Islam. So the Prophet of Allah showed this character, and that character is reflected and manifested in Amirul Mu'mineen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. He was never dishonest. He was never stingy. He was never envious. One thing is called envy and the other thing is called ghibta. One is called hasad and another is called ghibta. Hasad is to, when you see some good in somebody else, what you want is that somehow you want to take away that good from him or destroy that good that he possesses. This is called hasad. Okay, this is called envy. But there is a good envy which is called ghibta. Ghibta means you see something good in somebody else and you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, you have blessed that person with this character, with this quality, with this education, with this wealth. Oh Allah, I'm also your servant. Please grant me too. This is different. This is not hasad. And then the Prophet of Allah was never sarcastic. He would not, use sarcasm to get the point across. He would not procrastinate. Another problem that we have is for everything, for our worldly affairs, we are very, very active. We are very, very planned. We are very, very efficient. But in our affairs for the hereafter, we keep procrastinating. We say, no, not this year. I will start next year. I will do this after Muharram and then after Safar and then after Ramadan. We keep procrastinating. And then he would never brag about something. He would never brag who he is. There are narrations that people from other nations would come and they would enter into Masjid Nabawi and the Prophet is surrounded by companions and they would come and ask, who is the Prophet amongst you? Because they could not differentiate. And then the Prophet of Allah say, I am the not bragging or making a protocol and, making that person really feel the awe that you are now meeting the leader of the Muslim Ummah and the ruler of the Arabia. Nothing like that. He never bragged what Allah had honored him with. And therefore Quran says, Innaka la'ala khulqin azim. And indeed you possess a great character. Salawat ala Muhammad wa alayhi. And then a person like Amirul Mu'mineen, whose shuja'ah is never challenged in the battlefield, neither by the enemies, nor anybody from the Ummah can challenge the shuja'ah, the bravery with which Amirul Mu'mineen fought in the battlefield. Now, this is the statement of Amirul Mu'mineen, in which Amirul Mu'mineen says, Kunna iza, salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, that Amirul Mu'mineen would concede and say, Kunna iza ihmarra al-ba'as, when the battlefield would become bloody in the battle. Imam Ali is saying this. When the battle would become bloody and there is fear surrounding us, ittaqayna bi Rasulillah, we took refuge in Rasulullah. A person as brave as Amirul Mu'mineen would say, when the battlefield is bloody, filled with fear, we would take refuge in Rasulullah. And then the Amirul Mu'mineen says, فَلَمْ يَكُنْ أَحَدٌ مِنَّا أَخْرَبَ إِلَى الْعَدُوِ مِنْهُ. That there was no one amongst us closer to the enemy than the Prophet himself. Prophet was an inspiration in the battlefield. His shuja'ah was such that a shaji like Amirul Mu'mineen is looking up to him and taking refuge in a bloody battle in the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi wasallam. And when we look on the other side, what we find, that Quran says in Ali Imran, إِسْتُسْعِدُونَ وَلَا تَلْوُونَ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ وَرَسُولُ يَدْعُوكُمْ فِي أُخْرَاكُمْ فَأَصَابَكُمْ غَمًّا بِغَمٍّ. When you were fleeing, this is the battle of, in the context of battle of Uhud and battle of Hunain, this verse of Holy Quran is saying, when you were fleeing without paying any attention to anyone, while the apostle was calling you from your rear. They were running away and the apostle was calling. The apostle is in the battlefield and the companions were running away from the battlefield. So this is the character of our holy prophet. And also the character of the companions. All companions were not equal. We have to recognize Quran is very, very clear. They were people who were fleeing from the battlefield. Now in another verse of Holy Quran, also we find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, when the battlefield became very bloody, what happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna allazina tawallaw minkum yawma taqa al-jam'an innama istazalluhumu shaytan biba'zin ma kasabu wa laqad afallahu anhum inna allaha ghafurur halim. Those of you who fled on the day, this is again the battle of Ahad. Those of you who fled on the day when the two hosts they met, when the two armies met, only Satan had made them stumble because of some of their deeds. So here this verse is also showing that people fled from the battlefield. Now today Muslims are saying that, brother, we only follow Quran, we don't need anything else. And all the Sahaba, everybody is equal. You could just follow anybody and you can be guided. No, It is not clear. In the light of Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying there were people who fled from the battlefield, and they fled from the battlefield because of their sins. And there are other people, Quran is praising them. There are other people whom Quran praises them. In the verse of Holy Quran that I had shared with you before also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. قد خلت من قبله الرسل فإن مات أو قتل انقلبتم على أعقابكم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that the Prophet is not but a prophet like other prophets who came before him. But if he dies or if he is slain, are you going to flee back on your heels? Are you going to run away from the battlefield? وَمَنْ يَنْقَلِبْ عَلَىٰ عَقَبَيْهِ فَلَنْ يَضُرَّ اللَّهَ شَيْئًا. And whoever flees on the battlefield, he does not harm Allah in any way. وَسَيَجْزِيَ اللَّهُ الشَّاكِرِينَ. But surely Allah shall reward those who are shakireen, those who possess gratitude, those who have that sense of thankfulness, meaning that those who had fled from the battlefield, they cannot do anything to Allah or His Prophet, but Allah is thanking them, those who have thanked Allah in the battlefield by being steadfast in the battlefield and holding on to the ground, and by being with the Prophet of Allah. Allahumma salli ala. So how can those who stayed back with the Prophet and fight be equal to those who had fled from the battlefield? How can both of them be equal? Let me share another verse of Holy Quran in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يستوي القاعدون من المؤمنين غير أولي الضرر والمجاهدون في سبيل الله بأموالهم وأنفسهم. Not equal are those of the faithful who sit back. They don't go to the battlefield, excepting those who suffer from some disability. People who were disabled, they sit back. That is not the problem. But the verse is saying those are not equal who sat back, and those who waged jihad in the way of Allah with their possessions and with their persons. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ الْمُجَاهِدِينَ بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ عَلَى الْقَاعِدِينَ دَرَجَةً. Allah has graced, Allah has honored those who wage jihad with their possessions and persons by a degree over those who sit back. They are not on the same level. They are not on the same level. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tarfa'u aswatakum fawqa sawtin nabi. In Surah Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O believers, do not raise your voice in front of the Holy Prophet. Do not walk ahead of him. Meaning there were people who were trying to walk ahead of the Holy Prophet. There were people who were trying to raise their voice, and Quran had to intervene, Allah had to intervene and command that you do not dare do that. But the Prophet is not saying, Quran itself is saying. So this shows that not everyone is equal. Those who stayed in the battlefield, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I shall grant those, reward those who are shakireen. Now this shukr, because this was my subject, shakireen, the ulama of tafasir, they say that it is one thing that Quran talks about where it describes an attribute. For example, allazina ashraku, those who did shirk, those who did polytheism, Quran says, or allazina sabaru, those who were patient. So this is one, this is describing a quality of a person, that some of them did shirk, some of them were patient. Okay, allazina zalamu, those who did zulm. This is one thing, but then Quran also talks about mushrikeen, sabirin, zalimin. Now here, mufassirin, they say the difference is that mushrikeen, zalimeen, sabirin, here that attribute has been internalized. It is not like sometimes they do shirk and sometimes they don't. Here when they are mushrikeen means this attribute has been internalized. And likewise when Quran says shakirin, the attribute of shukr has been internalized to such an extent, no matter what the state might be, they would be in the state of shukr. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. This was the character of the Holy Prophet. And this was the character of those who surrounded him and those who manifested those traits and those qualities. For the sake of understanding for my young children here, I want to use a current example, because I keep doing this, I can't resist this, of Steve Jobs and Apple. Everybody knows Apple and everybody knows Steve Jobs. When I was in IT, I was in a Unix camp. I never liked Apple. But Steve, Allah, salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. But, Steve Jobs, with the genius that he had, I mean, it's all debatable whether he had a genius or he had a genius of copying ideas and really delivering those ideas very well. Because anything that you see in Apple was already there somewhere. He just made it, he just transformed it to give that good feeling for the consumer. Anyway, but what Steve Jobs was able to bring to Apple for so many years, and when he was, diagnosed with, cancer, and he was dying, and he was trying to find his successor, and he did all this search for so many years and whatever, and finally, we have, the current guy, we have him, but we all know, at least I can say this, after seeing iPhone 6 Plus, that Apple had its own unique character that was manifested in the product that Apple would sell. And Apple was very, very proud. And Steve Jobs leaves this world and he tries to bring his successor, but Apple does not possess the same, qualities of Steve Jobs that he had of creating and innovating. And as a result, today you see the new iPhone looks like a Samsung. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The point I'm trying to make, my dear brothers and sisters, that even leaders, when they come, they train, and the guy who's now has been shadowing Steve Jobs for all his life, and still he cannot recreate what Steve Jobs would have done if he would have been alive. And if we look into the seerah of Rasulullah, the one who did not, when he would walk, he did not had a shadow, Amirul Mu'mineen was his shadow. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Yeah. We find these character traits that I have talked about, Rasulullah, they are manifested in its full form, in its kamal, in the personality of Amirul Mu'mineen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Because Amirul Mu'mineen belongs to that category of Shakireen. And because of that, even Shaitan concedes that there are some that I can never misguide them. Shaitan himself says that, oh Allah, I am going to misguide everyone. قَالَ فَبِإِزَّتِكَ لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. Oh Allah, by your might I swear that I will surely deviate everyone. إِلَّا إِبَادِكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصِينَ, except for your exclusive servants among them. So mukhlas and mukhlis, there is a whole different definition. Here it is mukhlas, not mukhlis. Mukhlas is someone that Shaitan says that I am giving up, I cannot turn these people around. And this is called Maqam-e Khulus. And then Allama Tabatabai talks about it extensively. And these are the people, they can never be misguided by shaitan. And from day one, shaitan has conceded that to your mukhlas ibad, I cannot misguide. And on the battle of Uhud, shaitan was not able to misguide those who were shakirin because they were mukhlas. And this is the maqam of mukhlasin, and our aimma, of course, are the part of mukhlasin. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So if we take the seerah from Amirul Mu'mineen, we will never go wrong. But if we go into the books in which ahadith were manufactured to cater to the tyrants of the time, then obviously you are going to be misguided. Because that is not the seerah of Rasulullah. That seerah has been falsified. And some of those ahadith that have been written by narrators, like I was mentioning, Israeliyat, these people had no place in Islam, and they entered into the fold of Islam and they wanted recognition, and they used fabricating ahadith as a means to please the tyrants of the time and get rewarded and get popular. And their ahadith are in the marketplace. Let me give you an example. There are ahadith that praises Baitul Maqdas and brings in equal stature to the house of Allah, Masjidul Haram, Kaaba. And there are ulama who challenge and they say this was fabricated. This was fabrication by Ka'b al-Ahbar, who was a Yahudi, and he was a Yahudi scholar, and then during the time of second Khalifa, he became Muslim, although during the life of the Holy Prophet, he used to persecute Muslims. And then during the time of second Khalifa, he became Muslim, and he did not had any position, so he needed power. So he started fabricating hadith, and he started quoting hadith saying, I have read this in the book of Moses and the books of the prophets of the past. So nobody could validate, and he started bringing this. And this was used by Bani Umayyah because Abdullah ibn Zubair was holding the ground in Mecca, and Bani Umayyah were holding the ground in Sham, in Syria, and Bani Umayyah did not wanted that Muslims from Sham to come to Mecca. These ahadith were fabricated that you don't have to go to Mecca, just go to the Dome of the Rock and you will be fine. You will get the same reward. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. अजीज़ो, हम अमीरुल मोमिनीन की ज़ात में वही औसाफ देखते हैं जो पैगंबर की ज़ात में पाई जाती थी. अमीरुल मोमिनीन अगर नफ्स रसूलुल्लाह हैं तो नफ्स रसूलुल्लाह की सनद है अमीरुल मोमिनीन के पास. अगर कुरान सनद दे रहा है, जो लोग खुद कह रहे हैं कि हम बहादुर है, कुरान कह रहा है ये तो भागे हैं मैदान से, तो इनकी सनद जो है काम आने वाली नहीं है. कुरान सनद होना चाहिए. और कुरान बता रहा है कि पैगंबर का अगर नफ्स है तो वो ज़ात अमीरुल मोमिनीन है. अगर हम वाक़यान पैगंबर की सीरत लेना चाहते हैं तो पैगंबर की सीरत अली और औलाद अली से हासिल हो सकती है. और जिस किसी ने भी उस रास्ते को तर्क किया है वो गुमराहियों के अंधेरों में गुम हो गया है. आज भी आलम इस्लाम इसी मुश्किलात में मुब्तला है. लेकिन मैं मसाइब की तरफ आते हुए अजीज़ों, पैगंबर अपने आखिरी हज के बाद गदीर खुम में ऐलान कर रहे हैं. किस तरीके से पैगंबर ने ऐलान किया? पैगंबर ने सरी तौर पर बताया, और तमाम मज़ाहिब इस्लामिया इस बात का इकरार करते हैं कि गदीर खुम में पैगंबर ने ऐलान कर दिया कि मेरे वक्त आखिर अनकरीब है. और गदीर के भी मुनकिर नहीं है, माना में बहस करते हैं लेकिन गदीर के मुनकिर नहीं है. पैगंबर ने कहा कि क्या मैं औलवियत रखता हूं तुम्हारे नुफूस पर तुमसे ज्यादा? सब ने कहा बला या रसूलुल्लाह। जब सब ने इकरार किया कि हमारे नुफूस पर हमसे ज़्यादा या रसूलुल्लाह आपका हक़ है, तब पैगंबर ने गदीर में अमीरुल मोमिनीन की विलायत का ऐलान किया। और उसके बाद हम देखते हैं मुसलमान कितनी तेज़ी से इन तमाम बातों को भुला देते हैं। पैगंबर अलील हो चुके हैं, पैगंबर अपने घर में हैं, और पैगंबर जो सहाबी होने पर इफ्तिखार करते हैं, उन्हें अम्र कर रहे हैं, उन्हें हुक्म दे रहे हैं, जाइए उसामा बिन जैद के लश्कर के साथ जाइए बाहर। और ये मदीने के बाहर क़ियाम किए हुए हैं और उन्हें बुलाया जा रहा है, ना जाएं बाहर। अंदर की खबर है कि अब ये ज़्यादा दिन जीने वाले नहीं हैं। अगर हुकूमत की बात दौड़ आपको संभालना है तो आप आइए जल्दी। और दौड़े दौड़े जिसका दिल हुकूमत में था वो पलट कर आ गए। यहाँ तक कि अब पैगंबर की आँख बंद होने का वक्त आ गया है, लेकिन पैगंबर की बज़्म में कोई नहीं है। अब सब हिसाब किताब हो रहा है कि कौन हुकूमत की दौड़ को पकड़ेगा। लेकिन जो पैगंबर के आँखों के तारे थे, जो पैगंबर की आँखों के नूर थे, अजीज़ों, वो पैगंबर के साथ बैठे हुए हैं। गश पे गश आ रहा है पैगंबर को, और गश से पैगंबर बेदार होते हैं, आँख खोलते हैं। एक रिवायत बताती है अजीज़ों, ख़ुद ये रिवायत बहुत तवील है, लेकिन जिसमें पैगंबर की आँख ज़हरा के आंसू के टपकने से खुलती है। जैसे ही पैगंबर आँख खोलते हैं, गश पे गश तारी है पैगंबर को, लेकिन ज़हरा की आँखों में पैगंबर आंसू नहीं देखना चाहते। या हबीबी फ़ातिमा, ऐ मेरी जान फ़ातिमा, क्या बात है, क्यों तुम गमज़दा हो मेरी जान। पैगंबर तसल्ली दे रहे हैं। फ़ातिमा कह रही है, बाबा आपके बाद ऐसा लगता है कि हम ज़ाया हो जाएंगे बाबा। एक मर्तबा पैगंबर अब फ़ातिमा की फ़जीलतें बयान कर रहे हैं। फ़ातिमा, तुम जानती हो फ़ातिमा तुम कौन हो? तुम्हारे बाबा को अल्लाह ने सरदार बनाया है अम्बिया का फ़ातिमा। तुम्हारे शौहर को सरदार बनाया है औसिया का फ़ातिमा। तुम्हारे ख़ानदान में जाफ़र तैयार है फ़ातिमा। फ़ातिमा, तुम्हारे बच्चे सैयदा शबाब अहलल जन्ना है फ़ातिमा। ये फ़ातिमा को पैगंबर तसल्ली दे रहे हैं। अजीज़ों, गश पे गश पैगंबर को आता जा रहा है, और एक मर्तबा दरवाज़े पर दस्तक होती है। जैसे ही दरवाज़े पर दस्तक होती है, फ़ातिमा जवाब देती है। कौन है? कहने वाला कहता है, मैं एक अरब हूँ जो पैगंबर से मुलाकात करना चाहता हूँ। और फ़ातिमा कहती है, मेरे बाबा बहुत अलील हैं और उन पर गश पे गश तारी है, तू बाद में आ जाना। ये कहकर लौटा देती है। कुछ देर नहीं गुज़रती, एक मर्तबा फिर दस्तक देता है। मैं वही अरब हूँ जो थोड़ी देर पहले आया था। अब फ़ातिमा बेचैन हो जाती है। दोबारा फ़ातिमा कहती है, मेरा बाबा बहुत अलील है, मेरा बाबा बहुत बीमार है, तो बाद में आ जाना। जब तीसरी वक़्त दस्तक देता है तो फ़ातिमा के आँखों से आंसू जारी हो जाते हैं और पैगंबर गश से बेदार हो जाते हैं। फ़ातिमा, क्या हो गया फ़ातिमा? फ़ातिमा कहती है, बाबा एक अरब आया है और दरवाज़े पर बार बार दस्तक दे रहा है, और मैं कहती जा रही हूँ कि मेरा बाबा बीमार है, बाद में आ जाना, लेकिन वो इसरार कर रहा है। एक मर्तबा पैगंबर फरमाते हैं, फ़ातिमा तुम जानती हो वो कौन है फ़ातिमा, वो वही है फ़ातिमा जो बच्चों को यतीम कर देता है, वो वही है फ़ातिमा जो गोदियों को खाली कर देता है। फ़ातिमा वो मलकुल मौत है जो मेरा मुंतज़िर है। फ़ातिमा मेरा वक्त आ गया है, फ़ातिमा मेरे जाने का वक्त आ गया है। फ़ातिमा बच्चे नन्हे नन्हे फ़ातिमा के छोटे छोटे बच्चे हैं, अली मुर्तज़ा किनारे पे हैं पैगंबर के, पैगंबर की आंख बंद होती है अजीज़ों, फ़ातिमा यतीम हो जाती है अजीज़ों। फ़ातिमा के साथ बहुत जुल्म किया गया अजीज़ों, फ़ातिमा के घर पर दरवाज़ा गिराया गया, फ़ातिमा ने सुब्बत अलैया के मसाइब पढ़े हैं पैगंबर के बाद। लेकिन मैं कहूँगा कि ए बीबी, ए ज़हराए मर्जिया, आपकी तसल्ली के लिए बिलाल मौजूद थे, अबू यूज़र मौजूद थे, सलमान मौजूद थे, लेकिन एक बच्ची जब करबला में यतीम हुई है तो उसके लिए ना उसका बाबा मौजूद था, ना उसका चचा मौजूद था, ना उसका भाई मौजूद था। शिम्र के तमाचे थे और सकीना थी, शिम्र के गोशवारे, शिम्र गोशवारे छीन रहा है। सकीना की यतीमी में सकीना को कोई तसल्ली देने वाला नहीं है, सकीना के दामन में आग लगा दी गई है। एक मर्तबा सकीना मख्तल की तरफ भाग रही है, चचा अब्बास कहाँ हो, चचा अब्बास आओ, सकीना की मदद को आओ। ऐ दादा अली, मैं आपसे फरियाद करती हूँ कि अब मैं जो यतीम हुई हूँ तो कोई मेरा तसल्ली देने वाला नहीं, मुझे तमाचे लगाए जा रहे हैं, मेरे दामन में आग लगा दी गई। सयालमुल्लज़ीना ज़लमू अय्य मुनक़लबिन यनक़लिबून इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन। बार इलाहा तो हमारी खलील अज़ादारी को कबूल फरमा, हमें कोई गम ना हो सिवाय गम हुसैन। जुमला मोमिन व मोमिनात की हाजात को भर ला, जो मक़रूज़ हैं उनके क़र्ज़ों को अदा फरमा, जो बीमार है बहक़ बीमार करबला शिफ़ा इनायत फरमा, ताजील फरमा ज़ुहूर क़ाइम आले मोहम्मद में। जहाँ जहाँ मोमिनीन बसते हैं उनकी जान व माल व आबरू की हिफाजत फरमा। अगर दुश्मनान इस्लाम काबिल हिदायत है तो हिदायत कर, वरना नीस्त व नाबूद कर दे। हमारे इमाम को हमसे राज़ी रख। मातम हुसैन या हुसैन।
Hussein, Ya 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 Hussein.
ताबूत मुजतबा का शबीर ला रहे हैं, 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 ताबूत मुजतबा का शबीर ला रहे हैं। मैयत पे हर तरफ से, मैयत पे हर तरफ से बस तीर आ रहे हैं, ताबूत मुजतबा का शबीर ला रहे हैं, ताबूत मुजतबा का शबीर ला रहे हैं। मैयत पे हर तरफ से, मैयत पे हर तरफ से बस तीर आ रहे हैं। ताबूत मुजतबा का शबीर ला रहे हैं। ताबूत मुजतबा का शबीर ला रहे हैं। ताबूत मुजतबा का शबीर ला रहे हैं। जिनसे आबोदा उनका है जिनसे उनका
निकला घर लौट के आया, घर लौट के आया, घर लौट के आया है, घर लौट के आया है, घर लौट के आया है, हाय फातिहा को ले आए बना के हाय फातिहा को ले आए बना के हाय हाय मोहम्मद दरबार गिरा है किस किस तरह से शान को किस किस तरह से शान को उम्मत ने सजाया है जा 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 मौला हसन साथ आया है निक निक जा 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 निकला जा जा मौला से चूम के लब तेरे मौला हसन से चूम के लब तेरे हाय हाय लबों से हसन साथ आया है निक निक किस किस तरह से शान को किस किस तरह से शान को उम्मत ने सजाया है जा 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 हाय मोहम्मद दरबार गिरा है घर लौट के आया है हाय मोहम्मद दरबार गिरा है बर मोहम्मद आले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम
या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई चलो चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान उठो रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले यहाँ से चलो चले करबला वहीं से तुम्हें मेरे चाचा सितम जो हुए बताना दिखाना चाचा जान को दिखाना रेदा भरी चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले बताना मिली जिस कदर तुझे दिया हमारी दालती किस तरह छिनी जिस तरह तेरी वालियां बताना बुझी किस तरह तेरी तशनी चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान मेरी चलो घर चल चले बदल से मेरे तो दिल जो बताना कसम सो अगर तुम्हारे बिना सकीना कभी आप मिले जब तुझे तो कहना ये चलो घर चल चले सकीना मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले सकीना मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले सकीना मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले लहर चल मेरे तुझे भाई तो कहना उसे मेरी रिहाई मिली हमें हमें नहीं अज़ियत कोई बेज़ुबान उठो घर चल चले शबी नबी चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले लबे तमामा तू करना तेरी मौज मेरी प्यास पर जो चचा के मेरे बाज़ों कहाँ मश्क कहाँ है ज़री चलो घर चल चले मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले सकीना मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले ना गम कोई ना उस्ताद वो ज़ंजीर से आवाज़ है वो पी तेरे साथ तेरे साथ वो सच्चा जाए हमज़दा शब कटी सहर हो चुकी चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई मिली चलो घर चल चले सकीना उठो मेरी जान रिहाई मिली घर चल चले लबों पर तेरे बात वतन जाएंगे कभी हम तुझे सताएंगे ना तुझे शकी निकल कैद से शुरू हम करें नई जिंदगी चलो चले सकीना को मेरी जान रिहाई चलो चले या
मैं खाक के गुलाम रुतबा मेरा जुदा 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 मैं खाक के गुलाम सब पढ़ने वाला मैं खाक के गुलाम मैं खाक के गुलाम तेरे मुझको चादर परवानी दिया है रुतबा मेरा जुदा मैं खाक के गुलाम करते हैं मुझ पर कौशल के किनारे मेरा हर सुल्फ़ का रुतबा मेरा सारे बड़े माला अकबर जवान कासिम गाजी से सजदारे ज़ैन मेरे आओ में उतारे यानी नबी का मुझ में मेरा है खाक के गुलाम रुतबा मेरा मैं बिन तेरे मुझको चादर परवानी दिया है मैं खाक के गुलाम रोती हुई करके वो बेशिकम मौलाना छुपा रहे थे मुझ में बोला उससे कितना मुझको मिला है मैं खाक के गुलाम सब पढ़े नजर मैं खाक के गुलाम मैं खाक के गुलाम तेरे मुझको चादर परवानी दिया है मैं खाक के गुलाम अकबर की राज रुतबा मेरा मैं या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हसन या हुसैन मौला या हसन या हुसैन मौला या हसन मौला या ताबूत हसन पर क्यों तीरों का साया है ताबूत हसन पर क्यों तीरों का साया है ताबूत हसन पर क्यों तीरों का साया है ताबूत हसन सब पढ़ना में तीरों का साया है क्यों तीरों का साया है ताबूत हसन पर क्यों तीर है पहचानो मुसलमानों ये ज़ारा का जाया है ताबूत हसन पर क्यों तीरों का साया है ताबूत हसन पर क्यों तीरों का साया है क्यों तीरों का साया है क्यों तीरों का साया पहचानो मुसलमानों ये ज़ारा का जाया है ताबूत हसन पर क्यों तीरों का साया है ताबूत हसन पर ले जा जनाजे को ये किसने कहा ले जा जनाजे को ये किसने कहा ऐसा रिसालत का तीरों से उतारा है हसन पर क्यों तीरों का साया है हसन पर क्यों तीरों का साया है हसन क्यों तीरों का साया है क्यों तीरों का साया ताबूत हसन पर क्यों तीरों का साया है ताबूत हसन पर क्यों तीरों का साया है ज़ैनब की औज़ारी से को राम मचाए ज़ैनब की औज़ारी से को राम मचाए बाबा की निशानी को क्यों ज़ैर मिलाया है ताबूत हसन पर क्यों तीरों का साया है हसन पर क्यों तीरों का साया है
तेरी जागी से चल पढ़ा काफिला मेरे गाज़ी का हो तेरी जागी से चल पढ़ा
हाय बाबा हाय बाबा हाय बाबा हाय बाबा हाय मेरे ज़ुल्म बाबा जाएगी आयो मेरे मज़लूम बाबा जाएगी अब तेरी सजना मेरे मज़लूम बाबा जाएगी अब तेरी सजना कैसे सोऊं सीने पे तेरे रंग में हुआ है पामान सीना कैसे सोऊं सीने पे तेरे रंग में हुआ है पामान सीना आयो मेरे मज़लूम बाबा जाएगी अब तेरी सजना आयो मेरे मज़लूम बाबा जाएगी अब तेरी सजना कर रही थी फरियाद कर्श में लड़के का कमाने कर रही थी फरियाद कर्श में लड़के का कमाने कागज को कर बजाते याद कोई आयो मेरे मज़लूम बाबा की अब तेरी सजना आयो मेरे मज़लूम बाबा रन में कैसा ये शोर है कृष्ण शब्द का असर कर रहा है रन में कैसा ये शोर है कृष्ण शब्द का असर कर रहा है दर पे में मुझे बाबा तेरी है बेकस आयो मेरे मज़लूम बाबा जाएगी अब तेरी सजना आयो मेरे मज़लूम बाबा जाएगी अब तेरी सजना घर से अगर आया कोई गैर वो आएगा फिर मैया मेरी घर से अगर आया कोई गैर वो आएगा फिर मैया मेरी आगे जब से मुश्किल हुआ है आयो मेरे मज़लूम बाबा जाएगी अब तेरी सजना आयो मेरे मज़लूम बाबा जाएगी अब तेरी सजना क्या खबर दी पामान होंगे तशनगी से बेहाल होंगे क्या खबर दी पामान होंगे बेहाल होंगे कैसे बोलूं मेरे बाबा नबी में तुझको आयो मेरे बाबा जाएगी अब तेरी सजना कौन देगा हमको तसल्ली देगा दिलासा कौन हमको कौन देगा हमको तसल्ली देगा दिलासा कौन हमको गिर गया है तूफान गम मेरे बाबा आयो मेरे मज़लूम बाबा जाएगी अब तेरी सजना शाम गम में जब के दुनिया पामान लाशें पर सो गई थी शाम गम में जब के दुनिया पामान लाशें पर सो गई थी बाकी पर ये सकीना आयो मेरे मज़लूम बाबा जाएगी अब तेरी सजना आयो मेरे मज़लूम बाबा जाएगी अब तेरी सजना
السلام عليكم يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا حبيب الله السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا فاطمة سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أبا العباس يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وقاسم بن حسن بن عقيل وحاني بن وحبيب وحر شهيد عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء. السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء. السلام عليك يا سلطان يا أبا الحسن يا علي الرضا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان. على خليفة الرحمن إمام العز العزان شريف الرحمن. أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسحر الله تعالى مخرجك وجرورك. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.